Hi, my name is Cora May, and today we talk to you guys through a 27 Nokhud offensive that we ran earlier this week on the affixes Fortified, Sanguine, Volcanic. Pretty easy week, but still requires like a lot of coordination around Sanguine. There's usually a lot of lost time because of Sanguine, which is why it's like a good week, but it slows down your dungeon, so it's harder to do like the highest keys. The first pull that we always do is this pat, and we always lust on it. We see the Moonkin is standing out. He's put down Vortex. We saw one War Spear, this one that doesn't have the icon next to it anymore. He just jumped out and got triggered by the War Spear. This is good with the Vortex as long as you have your range that is standing far enough out. Otherwise the Vortex won't work and the War Spear will still reach. You're gonna see the other one try again. After the kidney, of course, and then there he goes. Okay. So other than that, the only thing that we're really worried about here for the most part is looking out for Sanguine. For the most part, on most weeks, we aren't worried about like killing the Planestomper before going to the next pack. In fact, what we're mostly doing is just focusing down in this case, the War Spears so that we can chain everything into the next pack. But since this week is Sanguine, we are actually taking the time to kill almost everything in the pack before we chain to the next one, or we just kill it all and then move on to the next one. So this is not like our normal strategy for this dungeon. This pack is scary without Lust, but with Lust, pretty easy to do, especially since you have Nature's Vigil and VE rolling with like Lust, and they have PI on each other, their CDs, and they're just bat-chested back there. The second set of War Spear charges is going to be the Bop, and if we get another one, we can sack, we can Time Dilation, or I can also use Cauterizing Flame. You can also set up a triple Cauterizing Flame Dispel, like I have my cross video, which I'll link down below if you're not sure what I'm talking about. And that way you can, like, if you only have one range, you know, is baiting, because always gonna target the furthest person, you can dispel someone 3 times in a row if you don't have a better, like, way to bait these. However, since you're probably Evoker, I'm gonna show you a pretty, like, it's recently new, it's only been around for about a week, way to be able to dodge all the War Spear charges really easily. What you're gonna see me do is I'm going to rescue on top of this pole with the Shadow Priest. Now the Shadow Priest is up here with me, he's going to grip the Boomkin. In a second. Surely soon. I think it takes him a while to remember and just like not just start bat-chesting that he needs to help the Boomkin up here. And what you're gonna see is when we get to packs that have the War Spear is they're going to just bug out. So on this pack there's no War Spear, so there's not that much incentive to do this. The main incentive is that then if you are up here, you don't have to dodge the swirlies on the ground, which is really annoying if you're a caster to have to keep dodging. The biggest kind of risk or problem with this strat is that when you get Thundering and also the Ahuna. So when you get Thundering, either gonna auto clear or someone needs to jump down to clear. So in this case, we just all clear together and we're fine. The only problem here though is that so these mobs do frontals, and that leaves our rogue, his only option here is to have to like clear on the tank when we all auto clear like that. And that means he's like running the risk of just dying. And so he complained about this later. So do keep in mind that if you are doing this and you're just like, if you have 3 range up here, you're just auto clearing, you could run into this problem. If you only have 2 range up here and you auto clear, you'll never run into the problem because it'll always be like another melee for them to clear with. It's only when you have 3 range up here that it's going to be like consistently maybe become a problem. And that this pack really free. The only hard part is of course like grouping the mobs together. This week it does you do lose DPS by not like grouping them together, but also it's kind of nice to spread out for Sanguine healing. And of course we're going to have to jump down eventually to help deal with the Sanguine healing here too. The next one we're doing is the one that pats in the middle. This one does have a War Spear right here, so I think at least one of us is going to stay up here. You don't need all 3 of your range to stay up on the pole for it to work. You just need whoever is the furthest target to be up on the pole for it to work. So this is what you're gonna see. You're gonna see that this War Spear is just going to basically just do nothing and just get stuck doing his swift stab and not moving and just bugging out like that the entire time, which is nice because then he's not putting anything on your tank, not doing any damage to your tank. He's not moving. You don't have to worry about dodging him. You don't have to worry about healing it. It's absolutely really nice. Hope they don't fix it, but I'm sure they will soon. Maybe by the time I put this video up, it'll be fixed actually, who knows. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and skip to the next pack because it's pretty self-explanatory. Again, we're mostly just trying to kill the War Spears and then the Planestomper. I staffed the War Spear because that's normally what we do, but I forgot that it was Sanguine week, so maybe I should have staffed the Planestomper here because we are actually going to kill him before. No, actually we ended up dragging him in. As you can see, we are on the next pole and he's gripping up the Boomkin again. Our rogue is being a guy, and other than that, it is pretty easy. I highly suggest taking rescue in this dungeon. Even if you don't have like another range in this dungeon, just getting yourself up there and like the whatever melee you use to get up there can hop down is going to be really, really nice, so that you don't have to worry about healing off the War Spirit Blades at all. Let's skip ahead again a bit. Same thing over here. We're using this pole now. Exact same thing. And then this is the last pack that we're going to pull before the boss. And our Shadow Priest is just going to stay up there. Another thing to note is that you can use your hover ability. Sorry. It's like, what is that thing called? You can use your hover ability also to dodge the War Spears like I didn't do here. I didn't even realize he was targeting me and wasn't targeting the Shadow Priest. Must not have been like in combat with him or something. But now I'm just going to go ahead and skip to the boss. I'll back up 10 seconds. Okay. So first thing to note, when you get to this boss, I always like to make sure I'm in the air and position myself on whatever side that I see the first spear is activated on. And then I go stand over there. The first set of shards of stone, you will get 2 of them that you have to heal off. And then after that, as long as you are sitting there ready to click every single lance, then you don't have to worry about getting like 2 of them in a row, basically. You get them less often, means you have to heal less. I always say this is the first one, just because it's going to make my life easier later. There's nothing else to use it on. I basically just use it on CD here just to make it easier for me to top people. When you are having to move around a lot, you want to make sure that you're making good use of like VEing your DPS, hovering. I'm also running Time Spiral here. I can rescue someone to help me get where I need to go if that's necessary as well. And the other big thing to look out for as a healer is to always say like, hey, I'm blue and I need to clear, or I'm red and you guys need to just clear with each other, so that your DPS realize that either someone needs to make their way to you so that you can go click the lance, or they just know you need to actually go clear on the tank gun like you normally would. That is basically the only tip I have for this boss. Other than that, just make sure that you're clicking the spears as soon as they're available so that you don't have to heal off extra shards of stone. Other than that, easy peasy. Oh, the other thing we do on this fight, which isn't like really healer related, we actually CC the mobs at a certain point so we stop killing them, and that's what enables you to save so much time in this dungeon. So that one was like a sap, that one was a root, and also I usually landslide, like the last one we get if we need me to. Though in this case, because it was fortified, I don't even think we got to the point where I ended up using landslide at the end. But landslide usually has to be the last CC used because it only lasts 30 seconds. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and skip ahead. Alright, so when we get to the area, to the storm area, the first pull that we're going to do is going to be our lust pull with this Thunder Beast. So it's going to be the Thunder Beast plus the 2 Storm Shields. So your tank takes so much damage on this pull, and then whoever is getting targeted by the Chain Lightning, it is livable as long as they 1 have a defensive and 2 they spread out so it's not cleaving to anyone else. And if you don't have purges for these Storm Shields, this pull gets way harder. Like on, I think we did on 25 without a purge, like in a sale or something, but we definitely wouldn't ever try this on like a 27 without a purge. We just pop lust, bad test this thing down. Make sure you're paying like good attention to actually like healing your tank on a pull like this. And then just looking at whoever has the Chain Lightning, doing DPS, and making sure you're helping kick the Thunder Beast if you need to. After this, we are just going to go around to the totems and do those packs. There's not really a lot to talk about here. The only thing is just like making sure that you're helping kick the main guy. Normally we have our tank is soloing the Storm Speaker because he can like CC that one, and then the DPS are usually in charge of all like, it can be 2 melee if they're kicking late, but since we only have 1 melee, it's the rogue and he's calling the range kicks every single time to make sure that we're like hitting all the lightning bolts, because these things will one-shot or be very close to one-shotting you on fortified if you don't have a defensive for every single one. I don't really have a lot to talk about with these packs, honestly. Like the only thing you're really looking out for is when the totem is blowing up. And if you have like the shield guys, say like you did pull a shield guys with like the Thundercaller, you'd have to be watching the shields to make sure you have healing for if those are going to blow up as well, like especially if you don't have a purge. And making sure your DPS aren't setting in front of the Arcane Blade, Arcane Strike. But that's about it for this as a healer. It's really straightforward. The hard part here is, of course, the Raging Tempest. So the Tempest has been nerfed by 20% starting this week. I have a whole video on like healing Tyrannical Tempest before the nerfs if you want to go check that out. This one I do it a tiny bit differently in the video, because in the video I did it was a fortified. So the plan there is to get 4 storms, since this is, so that one was tyrannical, so that one of the plan was get 4 storms. Since this one is fortified, we're only going to be getting 3 storms. So I stasis the first, Emerald Communion the second, and stasis the third. In the tyrannical video that I'll link down below, you can go watch that if you want. What I do is I Emerald Communion the first, and then I stasis the second, and then I rewind the third, and then I have Emerald Communion and stasis back for the fourth if I need it there. That may not have been what I did in that video, but that's what I've been doing now on tyrannical, if you're wondering. There's a bunch of different ways you can do this. If you want, you can stasis 1 and 2 if you pre-set up your stasis, like before the storm. If you do it before like 15 seconds before the storm, like when that first lightning strike goes off, that's when you put like your final like GCD inside of your stasis. Then you can get your stasis back for the second storm if you want to do it that way. But when I'm only getting 3 storms, I like to just go stasis, Emerald Communion, stasis, and then if in any of those I think I need like the rewind, or in whichever I think there's gonna be like less defensive CDs, etc., then I will press Zephyr, rewind, all that kind of stuff. In this case, I end up pressing Zephyr on the second one. Normally I like to do 1 and 3. I think I just forgot to press it here. But since it's been nerfed and it's fortified, this is just like, honestly, it just feels so easy. I spit out 1 more TA and then I detonate my stasis. And nobody's scared. It is pretty straightforward. Again, in that video I talk about a lot how I end up using like TA into golden hour value and mostly healing with stacks of Leaping Flame, though on this fight is so annoying, as you just saw there with auto-canceling Fire Breath. It wasn't that bad like 3 weeks ago, but for some reason the past 2 weeks this fight has been constantly auto-canceling my Fire Breath, and it's been driving me nuts. Because I'm always trying to, like, when it's close to the AoE, I'm trying as hard as I can to not like press like Dream Breath. In this case I could press Spirit Bloom because I'm not stasising this one, but especially I don't ever want to have to like press my Dream Breath. The other thing here is just to make sure that you're getting these orbs pretty late for a refresh. They extended the duration of the debuff, so we don't have to game it as much as we used to in order to get refreshes, but yeah. So there I still like, I did need the Dream Breath and Spirit Bloom, but let's say I Spirit Bloomed the one before, then I still could have rewound there and be fine. It wouldn't have been that big of a deal if I did that. And then this last storm we're getting, which is me detonating my stasis right there. And that's about it. And then I stop here at the end, of course, because I finally remember, okay, this thing came back up. Okay, now going forward into these mount packs. These mount packs as healers, again, the Treasure is not super scary. The only thing to really be looking out for in a high fortified dungeon is like if you are missing a volley, the Death Bolt volley, that's a lot of healing, and especially if that lines up with the Soul Harvest, when that goes off, when they steal your souls and you have to go find them. The other thing I do here is I do run Deep Breath Stun in here. This is mostly for my rogue when he's a guy, as we like to call it. This is the boon of the Ascended, so that he can dodge all the frontals. It's good for the Ahunas. I run Time Swirl in here, I run Rescue in here, I run Short TD, and I run Deep Breath Stun, all just to help my DPS out, because to be honest with you, this dungeon, the timer is really lenient, and there's not a lot of healing that needs to be done. So this is definitely like a high utility dungeon for me. And other than that, just DPSing this first one, I always have the Death Speaker on focus when I remember to make sure I'm getting kicks. Or not the speaker, the other guy, the named guy that's in every single mound that you have to kill in order to summon the boss. And the main thing that we're doing here is we're playing these packs a little bit weird, kiting a lot more than normal, putting down this vortex, not for a tank, but because we're thinking about Sanguine, because Sanguine with these mobs that stop and do channels and cast so much is where you lose like all of the time in this dungeon. Like this dungeon super easy this week, but like our timer was like I think we have like a minute or 2 minutes left, but we have like a 0 death run, super clean, but we just lose so much time to Sanguine in this area. Yeah, there is not a whole lot to talk about here. These packs are mostly scarier on like the Bullstring weeks. Oh, we let a volley and a Shatter Soul go off there. That is the exact combo that I was talking about. This Death Bolt volley goes off and the Shatter Soul is going. So like I should have seen the Shatter Soul going off. Like I should have looked at this icon and walled, but I think I was like really preoccupied looking at how I was going to clear Thundering with all this in front of me and not paying attention to the fact that the Shatter Soul was going to go off. Yeah, I did. That's one way to clear the debuffs. Okay. Alright. Maybe, yeah, it was not a 0 death run. I actually died once. I think that was the only death this run. Despair. Okay, but other than that, really clean run. And these packs, again, nothing that's scary. We're just way worried about Sanguine. Your tank can take a lot of damage on like these packs if it's fortified and some other like scarier affixes for them. Just making sure someone is like locking down the beast collar here so you're not getting the extra dogs is really important. And then we get to the boss. The other thing you didn't see me do that I kind of want to back up for just to remind you to do as a healer. Oh my god, this pack lasted forever. Is after we kill this pack, whatever the last pack is, like it doesn't matter if the last mound we did is like the one all the way at the beginning. I always go and I start the RP. In this case, we actually ended on the one that was right next to the boss, so that was nice for me, but normally we end on that one, and then I like walk over while we're still in combat and they change the next bowl. We were just doing it a lot differently and actually finishing packs just because it's Sanguine. So we pull this a lot more slowly than we normally would. Okay, as far as this boss goes, okay, so as I said earlier, I'm running short TD, so on the first set of wins that goes out, I'm going to time dilation myself, and then the rogue is going to cloak, and basically this entire like fight is revolving around me helping the rogue stay alive, because when they don't have cloak, they don't really have a good way to live the Gale Arrow. Like things like feint aren't going to work and stuff like that. Like feint, I don't know, what some people think Zephyr works, Zephyr does not work. It is a targeted ability, it is not an AoE ability. The main idea here though is just making sure that I'm going to have healing for after we stack up for the Gale Arrow each time to make sure people are topped, because right after the Gale Arrow she does quick shot. It's not as bad as it used to be, like they nerfed it, so the quick shot doesn't happen as quickly as it used to where someone would just get like unlucky and die, but it still really is important coming out of the Gale Arrow to be able to top everyone before they all like spread out and start taking damage from quick shots. This dungeon, or I should say this fight, I think is like one of those that's kind of like underrated and forgotten about. Not because it's like super hard to heal, but it's really easy to go in on this fight if you're having to spot heal a lot, especially like last week was Tyrannical Grievous. It was my mana was very sketchy a lot of times during this fight just because you're having to like manually echo so much instead of like relying on TA. So we are stacking up for the first Gale Arrow. I have pressed time dilation on myself. The rogue is going to cloak. The druid can do bark, bark, bear, bark, bark in order to live it. That's how it works when you have like a 1 minute CD. It's the same thing for Blessing of Sacrifice. It's the same thing for Blur. It is possible to get 1, 2, and 3 if you are super good with your timings. However, by the fourth one, you're still gonna miss one. So if you're gonna miss one anyways, you might as well just not play it sketchy and just go have it that way. And we always have like a planned CD set to make sure nobody's getting one shot. This is only going to start one-shotting you like once you start getting to like 25 Tyrannical, unless your gear is like really bad. Getting stuck here for this Gale Arrow. I'm fire breathing. That healed our druid a bit. I'm just gonna press the stasis and everyone is nice and healthy and topped. And the only one here who's not topped is me because I'm taking time dilation damage. But other than that, we are totally fine making sure that we're getting away from the Gale Arrows. And then you kind of have to make a choice on this fight when you do the pushback to play on top of your range or on top of your melee, but you don't want to be off on your own, baiting the lines to go out when he does the Earth Splitter here. It's going to knock us back, so in this case, I decide to stand on the melee. The range over here. The only time, oh, I ended up going the wrong way. This is a bad example. The only time this Earth Splitter gets really sketchy is if you have like thundering, like everybody has thundering and it's expiring during that. That is where I've seen like the most wipes on this fight, is like the Earth Splitter goes off and just running over one of those will just like one tick you and needing to clear and not being able to is the main thing. So again, idea here, just making sure that we are topped going into this. So I actually end up rewinding before the Gale Arrow just because I want to make sure everyone is topped before we go into it. My druid is not quite topped. I send a living flame over to him. He also decides to get out because he wants his thundering buff and he doesn't want to clear. And then I've time dilated the rogue here, and then I've walled in order to live it. And I tip the scales at Dream Breath. Like I said, I just want to make sure that everyone is as healthy as possible going into the next quick shot that's going out. It's going out on our rogue right now. And then other than that, it's just the same thing over and over again. This third one that we got, I already have a stasis set up. It's just, it doesn't really matter it doesn't have to be a super efficient stasis. Like, as long as you put like a Dream Breath or a Spirit Bloom in there, it's going to be fine. I'm definitely Dream Breathing on CD during this fight because it's just like really efficient hot healing. But other than that, just making sure I get like at least one of those in a stasis to make sure that I can get people like relatively topped for the next quick shot that goes out. And that is basically that boss. Okay, going into this boss. So if you aren't familiar, I'm sure you're familiar by now. There's a skip that you can go around the side so that you don't have to deal with any of the trash. I'd be very surprised if you haven't seen this by now. You never know, so I'll back up. All right, when we get here, we are pulling all of these little mobs. They are worth nothing. They also do nothing. They just provide funnel. That's all they do. They don't drop sanguine. I don't think they interact with any of their affixes. I don't think they do a whole lot of tank damage either. If anything, with a prop paladin, the more targets I have, the tankier they are. I mean, they do damage. Has his back turned to them right now. And then as far as skipping these two guys in front, you can use Shadow Meld or you can use Vanish in order to skip them. So our rogue doesn't have Vanish available because he pressed it on accident. So in this case, our Boomkin, who has Shadow Meld, you see him right here. He's going to cast a Starfire. He doesn't want to dot the mob. He's going to dodge the swirly. He's going to Shadow Meld. And before he Shadow Melds, the tank is going to pull this. If you don't do the Shadow Meld, then when you pull this guy, it's going to pull the two in front. So you guys are going to reset. We're going to have all the mobs come in. And as you can see, I have set up a, behind my little lust reminder, I set up a stasis with 2 cauterizing flames. I set up a stasis with 2 cauterizing flames and then just a random temporal anomaly. This is just so I can triple bleed dispel my tank. Again, similar to what I was talking about in the first area, I have a video on it that I show you how to do it on Cross. Basically, the idea is the first dispel this one out and you see that my cauterizing flame is on CD and I just dispelled him. The next one that goes out, I'm going to activate my stasis. This first cauterizing flame is going to dispel his bleed. The second cauterizing flame is not going to dispel anything and it's going to bug it out and cause it to reset the CD, allowing me to dispel the 3rd bleed in a row. Aside of that, this first phase is pretty self-explanatory. The only problem that you might run into if you're doing this is you should get a stasis during the intermission, but it's not going to be an efficient stasis, and I'm pretty sure that's like what's going to happen to me. Depending on how long your intermission lasts, this could matter or not matter. I just remember on this run, our intermission lasted much longer than usual, and I was like, yeah, I don't need a lot of healing here. I just need like 1 rewind, maybe a tip to scales. I'd even set up like a Emerald Communion or whatever, and we almost died actually because of it. So I'm definitely in the future going to be not underestimating that anymore. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and skip ahead. So during this intermission, I'm always making sure that I am kicking this guy. I'm just putting out a temporal anomaly. I've activated Zephyr in both of my CDs. The thing here that I'm trying to do is I'm trying to save my second scales charge because in case I get the charge in phase 2, I don't want to have nothing. Like if I have nothing, I can call for sack, but I'd rather have a scales charge than ask for sack if I can. And so I've just rewound. I've just activated my stasis, and then I'm just going to get like a small amount of my stasis. It's really hard to get a good one just because of all the movement, and then I activate my stasis, and by now the moms are usually dead. Like this is the longest I've ever seen our intermission last in a long time. I don't know what the difference was, but yeah, I think we like used to pop CDs and then we stopped. But yeah, I ended up like walling the last 6. I was like, holy shit, I cannot believe the intermission lasted that long. I've never seen it do that in a long time. I can't speak English. And outside of that, this second phase is pretty simple. We are going to be utilizing this rock for the charges. You're making sure you're dispelling the tank. And another important thing to note, the best time to use your staff is right here when someone has a static spear, because that means that he is no longer spawning swirlies on the ground. So this is where I always use my staff, especially if I have thundering here, is whenever someone gets targeted, especially if there's someone who can vanish. In this case, he doesn't have vanish, so we're still gonna get pulled. I'm not even sure if I get to finish the staff, but I guarantee you I saw it was on the rogue and I was like, oh yes, I'm sending this. But just a note, if you want to use your staff somewhere, always do it when someone is getting targeted by the static spear. In this case, he didn't have vanish, so we all get pulled in, and then you're gonna see us all scooting to the side so that we can drop over here, making sure that you are topping everyone before the things go out, and then dodging and giving your friends room if you can. And other than that, this phase is pretty simple. The only like kind of hard part of this phase is just like right here, like not necessarily right here, but after the static spear, having to top people before you have to do the dodge is a little rough when the swirlies are spawning and you don't have the freedom to like sit there and like cast like a spirit bloom or like aim a good dream breath or any of that stuff. In that case, you just saw me like I pressed Renewing Blaze beforehand. Like I saw who was getting targeted. Press Renewing Blaze, and then I VE, and that kind of helps tops us all. And I also did like a Living Flame there, just to make sure I could get everyone topped going into this. Like you don't need a lot of healing, but just making sure you have enough to get everyone topped is really important. I drop a little bit of a bad one, but yeah, other than that, this boss fight, super simple. Just make sure you're dispelling your tank and make sure you have a little, like I should have definitely just set up an Emerald Communion during that intermission. Like that was a little bit greedy of me not to do that after my kick. I usually just don't do it right away because of my kick, but then after that, I put myself back in position. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. I hope you learned something. Nokhud is a relatively straightforward dungeon, in my opinion, so I felt like I didn't have that much to say and I was skipping around a lot. And yeah, thank you. Have a good one.